Hi everyone, it's Stephanie and welcome back to the My Favorite Things YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to be using some of the new products from the August 2017 release, and we're going to create a fun star background to use with the new Written in the Stars stamp set and the Shining Stars Die-namics. To create our background, which we want to be kind of the focus of the card, I'm going to be using the Star Celebration stencil, some Distress Oxide inks, and some water. So if you're not familiar with Distress Oxide inks, they are a really great ink for any type of techniques where you use water to kind of create different effects with the ink, because they do react really nicely with that water. They're very similar to Distress inks if you've used those, except for that they have a more opaque and chalky finish than the Distress inks do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an entire background covered with the inks, and then we're going to use a stencil and some water to create a fun background. This is a great technique that I have seen other designers use, and it really inspired me to want to try it myself because it does yield really nice results. So what I'm doing first is creating my background with cracked pistachio and broken china oxide ink. So I'm covering the entire background. I'm concentrating the cracked pistachio in the center area and then the broken china on the outside, just to kind of give it a nice glow in the center. Now off camera, because I don't want to get everything really wet, I completely saturated my stencil with water. So I sprayed the entire thing with water, and you can see here when I lay it down on the background, that water kind of sucked down onto the background, and the stencil is kind of fully saturating that background piece that we created. Now anywhere where the stars are, we don't have any water, so they're going to stay their true color that we've already laid down, but the water is going to make all of the area around those completely react with those Distress Oxide inks. So I'm just being careful not to shift the stencil while it's on the paper, and I let it sit on there probably for about 45 seconds, and then I very carefully lifted it off. And you can see now that we have all of the stars, like I mentioned before, staying the true color of the ink that we laid down on that panel, but everywhere around there where the stencil was laying on the panel and had the water on it, it completely made all of that ink oxidize. So it's kind of a more chalky white finish than what we started with. And any areas where the water wasn't fully saturating, we have a little bit of a dot detail. So this is a really great way to create some fun texture. And I really love it with this stencil because most of the stencil area is the part that was covered in the water, so we only ended up with the small area of the stars that didn't react. So I really love how this technique kind of worked with this stencil. So now that we have the background created, I'm going to take the Shining Stars Die-namics and I die cut that from a piece of silver glitter cardstock. And then I'm also going to take the Written in the Stars stamp set, which kind of coordinates with that Shining Stars die set. And I'm going to use one of the secondary sentiments, and I'm going to stamp this onto a piece of black cardstock. I'm going to stamp it with Versamark ink so that I can heat emboss it with white embossing powder. So I treated the cardstock first with my embossing magic bag just to kind of take away any static and make sure that I don't have any embossing powder sticking where I don't want it. So you can kind of see that powdery look on the cardstock, which is what I applied first, and that will easily just rub off when I'm done with my embossing. So I added my white embossing powder, and now I'm just using my heat gun to fully heat that up so that it's nicely heat embossed on my little piece there, and then I trimmed it down into a strip of cardstock. So now that I have all of the components done, I'm going to go ahead and start to assemble the card. So I took my background piece that we created and I die cut it with the rectangle from the Blueprints 13 Die-namics, and that just gives it a nice finished edge with that stitch detail all the way around the outside. And then I'm adhering that panel to a top folding grout gray card base, which measures 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, which is a standard A2 size card. So now I'm just adding some adhesive to my die cut word, and if you prefer, you can definitely use liquid adhesive for this. I just find that the tape runner works no problem, and I don't have any problems of getting the liquid adhesive on top of the silver glitter paper, which I tend to normally have happen anytime I use liquid glue. So if I can use a tape runner, I definitely go with that option. And then I took my secondary sentiment and I adhered it directly over top of that large stars word, and that's going to complete my greeting. Now to finish off the card, I wanted to add a little bit more detail, so I die cut some of the stars from the Shining Stars Die-namics, and I used the same silver glitter cardstock that I had used for the main sentiment, and I'm just adhering those with some liquid glue kind of scattered around the card front. And then I decided I didn't want to stop there, I needed a little bit more bling, so I decided to use some of the ice cube jewels from Lucy's Cards. And I'm adding a few of those in the same areas that I've added the star detail. And then once I have that done, we have finished our card, and we have this really fun star background with the really kind of glowing look to the center by using those two different colors of Distress Oxide inks. And then we also have that really fun texture we created by using the stencil with the water. So thank you so much for watching today's video. I really hope you enjoyed the technique and we'll give it a try. If you would like a chance to win a $20 gift card to the MFT online store, please leave a comment on this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and I will announce the winner in next week's episode of MFTv. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.